Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the live show with Musart. Today we have Yvonne John, who is the author of Dreaming of a Life Unlived, of a story that I think many women out there are suffering silently, of a woman who was unable to have children, that she expressed her feelings through a book, and that now we are here with her today to share her story. Assalamu alaikum. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, and I think your topic is quite something that needs to be spoken about, and I think there's lots of women out there who are suffering in silence, who obviously want to be mothers and are unable to conceive. So what brought you to write this book?
So in 2014 I was having fertility testing.
Right.
And I'd spent the last 3 years prior to that trying to conceive with my husband. So I got married at 39, and at 40 we decided it'd be nice to try for a family and extend our family. So for 3 years we tried. It was enjoyable at the beginning, but it's something that you don't think is going to be a difficult thing to happen. And as we progressed in that journey, it started to become very difficult and very painful. And I wanted to understand what was happening or not happening.
Yeah.
So I went to the GP, had to push to get fertility testing. And then we embarked on a year of having testing. So my husband got tested, I got tested. And in October 2014, I sat in my consultant's office and he looked at me and said, "You have what we call unexplained infertility."
Right.
So they couldn't explain why I couldn't. As far as they were concerned, both me and my husband were okay. It just wasn't happening. But we were encouraged to keep trying. I was told at 43 I was too old to have IVF on the NHS because the cutoff is 40. I was also told I'd have a 4% chance of conceiving if I did try IVF, but I was still encouraged to try. So I remember leaving that office, and in my heart I just knew it wasn't going to happen, and I just went home and broke down and cried. From then it was like this instant reaction where I found that I couldn't be around my friends anymore. So I had friends with young families. I used to, enjoy being around them. I used to enjoy going to see what their kids were up to and hearing about their day. And I found that I couldn't do that anymore. If I was around them, if I went to their homes, I would instantly want to just leave and cry. It was such an overwhelming. And I'd be on a train and I'd watch young families going on a day out, and I just needed to get off because I couldn't hold back the tears. It was so strange because I didn't understand what was happening. It was very bizarre, and I felt like I was just going crazy. For me, I was lucky because early on in my journey I had a friend who knew exactly what I was going through because she'd been through it before, and she told me about an organisation called Gateway Women. So I looked him up. I connected with Jodie Day, who's the founder of Gateway Women. I went along to my first workshop, which was a day workshop called Living Without Children. And from then, I just knew I had to understand more about this grief and understand more about what it meant for me, what my life was going to be like from now on. All those kind of things that you just come up in your mind and you just don't understand, you don't know what to do with those feelings. And in February 2014, I joined a Plan B mentorship program with Gateway Women, and it's a year-long program, and it is all about finding your Plan B. And that's where I started to be amongst other women who were in the same situation, which was a great help. And through that, the idea of the book came about.
Okay. But did you not try getting IVF yourself? Privately, did that not occur to you?
No, for me, at the time, I was too sad and too grief-stricken to even think about it. The emotional journey we had come off just from trying to conceive naturally ourselves was huge. And because I had gone into this place of grief, which I didn't understand for myself, I just really needed to understand what that meant. So I couldn't have gone from trying naturally to straight away wanting to try for IVF anyway, because emotionally I wasn't able to do that. But I also was aware of how costly it can be, because it's about £4,000 to £8,000 a round.
And lots of people I know that they do I think they're like 3 times and
Yeah.
no luck.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the fear of that, isn't it? So like even if I do that and still it doesn't work out.
Yeah, it is a huge decision to make, and I
Yeah.
know many women who have gone down that route for it to be unsuccessful as well. And for me, financially, I mean, I couldn't afford to do it anyway. It was something that I wasn't prepared to be in that situation financially and go through 20 grand's worth of IVF and still not have a baby at the end of it. It was a huge thought and a
Yeah.
huge decision to have to make. And looking at, you know, then there's 2 of us, it's my husband as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about me
How
going,
did your
I'm
partner
going to do
feel?
this. So we were in different positions because when we met, being in our late 30s, we had the mindset that we probably weren't going to be parents anyway, so that was going to be okay. And it's an interesting thing because it's one of those, you know, there is that whole thing about, oh, you're getting on,
Yeah.
you know, when are you going to have a child? You've got to
Yeah.
hurry up. So
Yeah.
I was certainly very conscious of that. But I also felt at 38 when I met my husband that actually my time to be a mum was probably over. I didn't think it would happen just because people tell you it probably isn't going to happen. So I entered a marriage feeling like actually we're probably not going to be parents. It is going to be okay. It's just that having that year of marriage and really enjoying what was going on, and then that desire to see what could happen, you know, how our families could grow, what our children would look like, all of that just really hit me. And I just felt like, you know what, I would like to try.
Yeah.
And even at that point, it wasn't this great desire to be a mum because that wasn't me anyway. It was just the desire not to have hit menopause,
Yeah.
not knowing I hadn't tried, because I felt that actually if I had got to that stage and didn't have children and never even had tried, I felt that I probably would have been a lot sadder for it. So it was that moment of, you know what, we can try, let's
Yeah.
do it and let's see what happens. So it was a very easygoing, blasé way of
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
it. So it was that surprise that when I was told I had unexplained infertility and how that grief just hit me, that grief and the surprise of the grief was so overwhelming that
Yeah.
I was shocked that it was even there.
Wow.
And I think that led me, because of the work I did through Gateway Women, that led me to understand actually it was about having a child under the right circumstances and also having a child with that man who I had chosen to spend
Yeah.
the rest of my life with.
Okay, so how did your partner take it? Well, obviously you were very grief-stricken. Was he very, was he as depressed as you, or would you say, or was he like, this is just not meant to be? Was that?
Well, so men are very different.
Yeah, of
And
course.
at the beginning, I saw him as someone who was not upset at all. He was that person that
Nothing fazed
wasn't
him. Yeah.
bothered, oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
He never said it wasn't meant to be, but I think because he thought that his opportunity to be a father was over because of his age, he probably just felt, well, okay, so this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think him watching me hit the grief so deeply and so quickly also probably stopped him from feeling it, because all of a sudden he had to support me and
Yeah.
understand what was going on and be there for me. So his opportunity to show any kind of grief, I suppose, wasn't there, because he was holding that back to help me be in this place that neither of us understood where we were.
Okay. So when you started to write the book, was this like a healing for you?
It was. In the beginning, it was very scary. It was one of these projects.
You
Now
must
I'm
have cried throughout the
Oh.
first half of the book while writing it.
It was. I think when I remember being in the group, and we were talking about, and one of the things we were all talking about our experiences of being childless and how people react to us and how society sees us. And one of the things that struck me was actually none of us had a voice. It was almost like we'd lost that ability to speak, to be heard, to be listened to even have a place in our families, amongst our friends, all sorts of things. And I just felt like I really wanted us to have a voice back. And I was like, right, I'm going to write a book about this because
Yeah.
people have to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I thought, what am I doing? How am I going to write a book? I don't
Yeah.
know anything about this.
Yeah.
So it was this very daunting, scary initial process that I just didn't know how I was going to get past that for this book to even come about.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate again that I have a friend who does mentoring with women, and she's heard about the book. Her name's Helen Tucker, and she said, you know, I'm going to help you get this book out. So she was one of the people that helped coach me through that, and she helped me put things in place, asked me questions: what did I want to do, how did I want to be seen, and all these things. And also, because it wasn't just about my story, I wanted other women's stories in that. It was about how do we get other women on board,
Yeah.
and how do we get their stories out. So she really helped coach me through that. Also, because I was having my coaching with Jodie Day and with the support group, that was also helping me feel a lot more confident with telling my story, because the whole thing about telling your story is somebody's now going to know everything about you.
Exactly.
And you're like, I don't want people knowing everything about me, because
Exactly.
they're not going to like what they see.
Yeah.
So there was that element of it. So that's where it was really, really difficult. So there was the element of what truth did I want to be out there, what versions of my story, and all those kind of things. And should I leave this bit out? But if I did, would it be true? So it was working through all of that in the first place. And then once I got to a place where actually I was comfortable with that, and then actually writing the story, it was hugely therapeutic. It was, you know, we hold on to a lot of shame from our past, and it's huge, and it can stop us from even grieving or feeling like we deserve to be in that place of grief in the first place.
Yeah.
So being able to let go of that, because you've embraced it, and understand, actually I made decisions, and these are why I made those decisions. I did what I did, and this is me forgiving myself for it. To hold on to that and to embrace it was so empowering that actually then it gave me the strength to continue on this journey and write my story and become whole with it.
Okay, so would you feel that this is something that you are destined with now? You know, I feel many times we go through lots of hardships and struggles in our life, and I feel they are like a lesson for others around us. Like somebody's got to do it. I don't know, because I don't know if you're into the whole mindset thing and law of attraction and things like that, because when you said at the beginning to me, and this quite struck me, is when you said, oh, we felt we're not going to have kids anyway. Do you think because you had implemented that mindset that just carried that on, and maybe that's why you didn't have children?
No, I don't believe that.
Okay.
I do believe in the laws of attraction, and I do believe in mindset, so I completely understand where you're coming from, and it's something that I've heard a lot recently as well. You know, positive thinking, you should have faith, don't give up hope. And if you think about the fact that there's people who don't want to have kids but have children, so how does that come about? You know, there's people that don't believe in a certain thing, and that thing does come to life. So it's really difficult to be in a position where this isn't happening, to hear that, well, maybe you didn't believe it enough, and that's why it didn't come true.
No, I'm like, you know, like when you just think at the beginning, because because like those people who said you know, they don't want to have it, I think they say when they're mostly focused on not having it, it's whatever you're focused on, so they're going to get what they are putting their energy into. That's how it all works. So it doesn't matter if you're negative about it or whatever emotions you're putting at that moment in time. But you know, sometimes I think maybe, you know, obviously destiny has its role, and you know, we all have our role in as human beings. So, you know, maybe, you know, you were chosen to be someone who actually help other women. Do you feel that's why this has happened? Because now you feel, you know, I feel that you're very whole now and content with the whole idea that, okay, I'm not able to have children, and that's fine. So having to say that is a big thing, because lots of women won't appreciate that, or say that, because obviously, like you said, the society is always asking you questions. You're married now, why don't you have any kids? Or even if you have one kid, okay, where's your second kid? You know, we have that a lot in the Asian community. Okay, you've got 2 boys, why not try again? You might have a girl. And it's like, it's just that constant pressure on women all the time. It's like, yeah, but I might just be happy with my 2 boys. I might just be happy with my 1 child. You know, because I'm in that situation myself. I've got an 8-year-old, and I've got families always saying to me, oh, well, when are you guys, you know, you're not going to have more kids and stuff like that. Well, I'm a believer of God, and I say, when it's written, it will happen. But even if it doesn't happen, I'm fine, because at least I have a child. There's people who don't have any children. So what would your feelings be about that?
So for me, it was about what I did with my story. So my journey led me to here, and I had to battle with the idea that I really didn't want to be a mum because of a lot of the things you just expressed. But also, you know, why didn't you try IVF? Why didn't you try adoption? And one of the difficulties I've had, and I know other women have had in this situation, is that because there are things you can do to have a baby, because you can adopt, you can have IVF, and people believe that actually they are the answers and they are solutions, because you can have a baby through IVF and you can get adoption, but there are people who are unsuccessful with IVF and there are people who were unsuccessful with adoption. But because it can happen, people believe that you agree to make sure it will happen. Yeah. And I remember a friend of mine who is Asian, who tried for 15 years unsuccessfully through IVF to have a child, said, you know, there comes to a point when you have because that hope of that one thing can be so consuming that it can be destructive.
Yes, it is.
So for me, it wasn't about giving up. It was about changing. I did give up on I suppose, let go of the hope of being a natural mum, but there are many ways to be a mum. So knowing that it wasn't going to happen naturally was something that I needed to reconcile and grieve and honour for myself. But what I did with that was the important thing, because I could have stayed in that grief and it could have destroyed me. But what I did was chose to do something about it, so heal from the pain, but then also do something positive with it, because I was very aware that there's a lot of women out there who were in my situation, or are in the situation I was in 2 years ago, that don't know of any way out. So in their minds, it's really difficult, it's really tough. This tunnel is so dark, there is no light at the end of it. I might as well be dead. And I really wanted those women to hear that actually there is hope. There's a different kind of hope. And it is about the hope of actually being a fulfilling person, being in a fulfilling relationship, knowing that actually there is a tomorrow, that I do matter, I am important, I'm still a woman. Just because I didn't have a child, it didn't take that away from me. And those are the things that women need to hear. And those women, even though some of those women might go on and have IVF or go on and adopt because they choose to, some of them might not choose to, but it's all okay, because there is something, there's still a hope that actually we're going to have great lives.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thought. Okay, we're going to go for a short break now, and then we'll be right back.
Sale. Massive clearance sale is going on from 1st November 2017. Salma Designer Abaya House is giving you up to 70% off on all designer abaya, 60% off on designer kaftan, 50% off on waistcoat, 50% off on Islamic books, 500 gram ajwa dates only for £10, and many more items. Visit our store to get this clearance sale. Salma Designer Abaya House, 118 Whitechapel Road, London E11JE. Telephone 02070182375.
আমাদের কমিউনিটিতে কার্গো বিজনেসের প্রসার ঘটিয়েছে জিএমজি। এক যুগেরও বেশি সময় ধরে জিএমজি আস্থার সাথে সেবা দিয়ে যাচ্ছে। সস্তা বিজ্ঞাপনে প্রতারিত হবেন না। জিএমজি বাংলাদেশ বিমান অনুমোদিত একমাত্র কার্গো সেলস এজেন্ট। কার্গো সেবা নিলে বেস্ট সেবাটাই নিন, নিরাপদ থাকুন। জিএমজি কার্গো, আস্থা ও বিশ্বস্ততার প্রতীক।
Oasis Banqueting Hall, Barking, is East London's first choice for any occasion, offering a range of services and facilities to suit your needs. Whether it's a wedding, birthday, anniversary or religious service, 180 to 1000 guests, you can trust us to make your event truly special. Oasis Banqueting Hall, Barking, the perfect choice for your occasion. For bookings, call 0208 594 2222.
PCO claims minicab driver or বিপদর বন্ধু গাড়ি অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট করিয়া জবলেস হওয়ার দিন শেষ জাস্ট ওয়ান ফোন কলে PCO claims আপনারে দিতে পারে 24 hours recovery immediate replacement car storage and repair service 020 7791 7799.
Mom, isn't Dad come back home?
When a marriage breaks down, children suffer the most. If you are in this situation, we are here to help.
For child and family matters, Kingdom Solicitors.
সেল 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 সালমা ডিজাইনার আবায়া হাউসে ক্লিয়ারেন্স সেল 1 নভেম্বর 2017 থেকে সালমা ডিজাইনার আবায়া হাউস দিচ্ছে সকল আবায়ার উপর সর্বোচ্চ 70% মূল্য ছাড়, কাফতানের উপর সর্বোচ্চ 60%, ওয়েস্টকটের উপর সর্বোচ্চ 50%, 500 গ্রাম আজওয়া খেজুর মাত্র 10 পাউন্ড এবং ইসলামিক বইয়ের উপর রয়েছে সর্বোচ্চ 50% মূল্য ছাড়। আজই আসুন এবং আমাদের ক্লিয়ারেন্স সেল অফার গ্রহণ করুন। সালমা ডিজাইনার আবায়া হাউস 118 হোয়াইটচ্যাপেল রোড, লন্ডন E11JE, টেলিফোন 02070182375।
Hello there. Legal Taxi's mobile app is an amazing cloud-based taxi booking solution. The taxi drivers and passengers can access this application anytime and anywhere. Are you trying to call up a taxi? Well, don't waste your precious time anymore. And now, you can book your taxi at ease. Do you want to know how? It's so simple. Download the Legal Taxis app from the App Store. Enter the location manually or drag the balloon where you want the pickup and drop to happen. Legal Taxis application shows the taxis nearby. On a single click, your request is sent to the nearest driver. The taxi driver will receive your request and accept it instantly. In return, you will receive the notification and you could check the current location of the taxi with the estimated time to reach your pickup location. At the end of your journey, you will receive the receipt of taxi fare in your mobile app. Legal Taxis app not only allows you to book regular taxis but also black cabs, mini cabs and hackney carriages. Book your taxi today for a great voyage at Legal Taxis.
Welcome back. As like I said before, we are here with Yvonne John, who's talking about mothers without having children. So, coming back to a very interesting thought before the break was you talking about there is a lot more to life than just having kids. I think that's a wonderful thought because lots of women forget that. Lots of women forget that. And I think it's just that embedded environment that we're born in. Okay, women are meant to be at home, have kids, bring up these children and create great little human beings, and that's our life, that's it. But it's actually more to that, and I think sometimes, I say to a few of my friends who can't have kids, I'm like, actually you're lucky, you don't have to worry about holidays, you can just chill out, you can live your life to the max. Trust me, it's very stressful. Wake up in the morning, I argue with my daughter every single morning when I have to drop her to school, trust me, and it's like, and like her running around screaming and just chasing each other around the house, like, it's so stressful. I'm not going to be ungrateful and say I'm not grateful for my child, but there's always two sides of a coin, if you get my point. So how do you teach in your book that life is more fulfilling? Like you said, there's that tunnel is not always dark, there is light, there is hope, and I think many people forget the main purpose of life is us appreciating ourselves first.
Yeah.
So once we appreciate ourselves, then we can appreciate life.
Yeah, that's an interesting point as well.
Yeah.
I mean, self-compassion was a huge part of our healing process. Because we forget to look after ourselves, and whether you're a mother or you're not a mother, we naturally would just be plodding along with our lives, getting on with the busyness, and we forget to take time out for ourselves. And especially when you're in the grief process, because it consumes you, you forget to be happy. And that self-compassion part of it is about that, it's okay to feel this sad. It's just a moment, everyone feels sad, it will pass. So what am I going to do that's nice to give me some joy back again? So that was a huge part of all of our journeys in my support group for dealing with our grief. And one of the things that I felt it was really important to get across was actually, because we have so many messages, and you mentioned one of them, is that as young girls, we are going to get married, we're going to have babies, we're going to be these wonderful mums, and we're going to be superwoman.
Exactly.
And then we're going to have also careers, because we would, as teenagers, we were then told, get educated,
have a great
job. Go to university, have a job. And I remember for myself, and it's a big thing in the Caribbean community, it is about, you know, don't come home with babies, and
exactly.
make sure you have a good job first.
Exactly.
So you have all these messages that actually are not balanced. And therefore you go out into this world trying to find your way in it. And it can be such a confusing thing. But the one thing you know you're supposed to do is get married and have children. And in that order, because that's certainly the message I had as a young adult. So I remember going out into this world in my 20s, went to university and found that actually I didn't know who I was, because we're not taught about learning who we are. And so you don't know your strengths and your weaknesses. You don't know how actually you can be great in whatever you choose to do. And then I certainly didn't know how to date. So I muddled my way through it. And then all of a sudden I was supposed to get married. And I'm like, oh, I don't get this. And I actually thought I didn't want to be that woman. I always wanted to break the boundaries and not be in the box people told me I should be in. So you get to this place where you suddenly want to have all of that. You don't know how to get it. And then you might get some of it. But then you don't get that one thing that you truly think you should be getting, because as women, no matter what, we're going to have a child. We are going to be mothers. So all of a sudden you're in this place where you're not going to be a mum, and you don't know what that means for your womanhood, for you as a career woman, if you call yourself a career woman, or whatever it is, as a sister, as an aunt, as a friend. You don't know what any of that means anymore. So I felt it was really important for women to hear that actually we can have fulfilling lives, we can regain our joy, we can do something, and it doesn't have to be. And the perception is, and I've had this quite a lot recently, is that because you don't have children, you're going to have a really good career. And actually, we're not going out to be gung-ho in our jobs and have this wonderful career now, because there are mothers who have wonderful careers. So that actually isn't my prelude to becoming this great successful career woman. I just want to be successful in whatever I choose to do. So it's about being able to make those choices. And I think women without children, women in this situation, feel like they've lost a lot of choices because they don't belong. Because they can't possibly be a fulfilling woman, a fulfilled woman, because they're not a mum. So it's all of those things. So it was giving women that hope that actually we can make choices. We still matter. We still count. It's about looking after ourselves within that, though, and it's about we're allowed to make these choices. People call us selfish for certain things because we want to go off and do this, we want to go off and do that. We might choose to go off and travel the world, you know, but it's about being able to do that without the condemnation and the criticism around it. And I think that's another thing women find it hard, because we are criticised a lot because we're not mums.
What would you say to women who are being told, okay, oh, don't worry, you've got nephews and nieces, it's okay, you don't need to worry about having kids, you know? How would you deal with that kind of grief? What would you tell these women?
So the women or the women on the other side?
The women who are hearing that, who have not got children. Because I think that's very hard to hear, because I know, like, it's your blood at the end of the day, and, you know, you think, oh, it's my brother's son, or it's my daughter, you know, sister's children. But, you know, at the end of the day, that, you know, you go home empty. And obviously lots of women, I think, they indulge in that. I've seen those women who... You see them giving more love than the mother sometimes to those children, because they feel this is their source of having that exposure to children. But then, you know, they go away, obviously, you know, if everybody's got a heart, and, you know, they go away feeling down, you know, they're not mine. At the end of the day, I have to give them back. What advice do you normally would you give to these kind of, because you know, you mentioned earlier that, you know, you're going to be doing workshops and things like that. So I think there's one of the big questions that women will have is, how do I deal with that kind of grief?
I think the whole thing is about dealing with the grief. it's, you know, for me, it was joining Gateway Women and finding that support. And there are workshops, there's an online community. So there is a lot of women out there that can give you that instant support around it. It's very difficult to say to someone how to deal with the grief because everyone's journey with that is different. But the important thing around it is don't do it on your own because you can't. It is about reaching out and finding that help and being around women who understand. People, there are a lot of women out there, a lot of mothers out there who think they can understand or who don't want to see us hurt, so they're going to offer advice, but that advice isn't helpful. And some of the advice is, you know, well, you count yourself lucky because you have got a good job, or count yourself lucky because you have got nieces and nephews. That isn't helpful because actually that doesn't deal with the sadness that we have. So, you know, being in a community like Gateway Women is a great place because, as I said, women understand what it is like to be there, and it's about the acknowledgement of that grief and understanding what that grief is all about so that you can work through it. And what I found is when you're able to embrace that grief and you understand it, when you hear comments like that, you can actually look after yourself within it. Because there's sometimes I hear it and I still get annoyed because you're like, oh, really? Is that all you've got? You know, it's not a you know, my nieces and nephews, they're not my compensation for not being a mum. They are a part of my life that I enjoy. They live quite far from me, so I don't have a close relationship with them. But I have other people, I have friends with kids that I will have a close relationship with. But it's almost like saying mothers don't have that same relationship with their nieces and nephews. Well, actually they do, because that's the nature of relationships. What's important within that is me being able to make it okay for me to hear that comment and not want to throw something at someone or hit them because, oh, hang on, you don't get it. You know, why are you saying this to me? And I don't feel like that crazy person because the danger is actually you hear those comments and you go away and you just want to cry because, you know, you sit in this place going, oh, they really don't understand, they don't get it. Why do they say these things to me? It's not helpful.
I think this is the thing, and I think regardless of I think educating the women who, I personally believe, educating the women who can't have kids, I think we should educate the society of being more vigilant. Which I think people don't really realise how worse. Sometimes people might not want to have kids, because I know couples who purposely don't want to have kids, and they're happy living their life, but still people go in and interfere, and it's like, why are you interfering? That's I think, I don't know if it's in the Caribbean or if it's in the Asian society, but it's like people just don't have that barrier anymore. It's like they don't realize you're actually entering a very private barrier. You know, you're intruding onto them, and it's not fair. You know, it's like, have some etiquette, you know, have some manners. You know, don't go around barging and saying, oh, okay, why have you got another kid? And, or what, why do you have only two? Or, you know, people don't want to hear that, and it's just, I think those people need to be educated more. We need to do workshops on those people. Say, respecting other people's lives. You know, and if everybody did that, then we wouldn't have this kind of emotional turmoil that all these women are going through.
Well, I mean, again, that's another part of this, and that's another part of what childless women don't want to talk, or why they don't want to talk to other women, because of what can come back and the questions that come back. And if you're in this place where actually you don't understand it for yourself, you're so upset and so hurt and angry with it all, how do you then explain to someone who's asking you these really insensitive questions why you don't have children, which can be extremely... This is one of the reasons, again, another reason why I wrote the book and why I wanted us to have the voice back, because I wanted women or people on the other side of this to hear how difficult it is to be in my shoes and in our shoes, so that they can understand how insensitive those questions can be. But let's face it, these are normal questions, you know, and to me, it's about where they're coming from. So sometimes I say to people, understand the relationship of the person you have with the person you're talking to, because if it's close, you may be able to answer those questions, but if it's not close, why would you? And also within that, acknowledge it, because what people don't do is they don't acknowledge the difficulty. It becomes this, you know, why don't you have it? Really? Have you tried this? I mean, here's the miracle baby stories, because you possibly haven't heard them, and that's why you're not even trying any harder. When actually, it would be nice. wow, that sounds really tough. I'm sorry you're going through that.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand that's a very personal journey and you may not want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does sound tough. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that a lot. You don't hear that enough, actually.
Yeah. Well, you could just even say, you know, some people just might have that decision. So it's like, why didn't you ask? Just talk about something else. There's lots of things that you can talk about. But, you know, obviously being understanding. But, you know, I don't know. I think if you turn around and say, "Oh, I know it's tough," you might be opening another can of worms of them being upset again, and reminding them that it's tough again. So,
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing around that is one of the things that a lot of the women in my group have said is actually they would have liked to have heard that's tough because it's the acknowledgement that we're in this situation. What tends to happen is that it gets disregarded.
Yeah.
So the questions, the miracle baby stories, the judgment, the criticism disregards the fact that we are grieving. What's difficult for us is with our grief. So if I'm right at the beginning of it, I might not be able to do anything more than go off and cry because I just don't know how to manage it. But if I'm in a different place, you know, like where I am now, I can actually go, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And if I want to talk about it more, I will. And if
Yeah.
I don't, I just leave it at that. But
Exactly.
it's because I can manage it. And that's the whole thing I'm saying about, and the encouragement I'd give to women who are in this situation about reaching out and finding that help is about actually getting to a place where you can manage it for yourself. Sometimes I heard something the other day that actually I wanted to run off and cry about.
What was that?
It's just about, you know, have you... that simple thing, and I thought, really, do you still have to say this to me? I'm not. And it brings up a lot of old feelings around it, and all the stuff I'd worked through with did I really want to be a mum and all of that, you know, and maybe I didn't try hard enough. And actually just before that I had known of some other women through IVF who are my age and older who have been successful and are now carrying babies, you know, through IVF. And I'm sitting there going, oh, maybe I didn't try hard enough.
Yeah.
Because it does come back to you. It's not something that you go through your 5 stages of grief and it's over. It's always, it's just about, actually, it's not as deep. It didn't hurt as much, but it was there, and it was a trigger that had caused me to sit down and think, well, why is that triggering for me? What is it about that? No, remember, Yvonne, you've chosen this and you've done this and whatever. And I was able to look after myself and not be so consumed with the anger of it, but be actually use the self-compassion part of it to just be able to nurture myself, comfort myself and be okay. You know, it's okay that you felt that today.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal. Oh, okay, what do I need to do for myself now to just make this okay? And that's the difference.
But what about if people turn around when they say to you, oh, why don't you adopt then? There's always a choice of adoption. You know, how do you feel about that?
So I think adoption is a very brave thing for people to do, and it's a very personal choice as well. And I know someone who's going through it right now myself. It's something for me, it wouldn't have filled the gap and it wouldn't have healed the pain, because for me it was about having a child with my husband, and it was about seeing genetically what our child would look like, who they were going to take after, and you know, we were going to gang up. I had all the stories in my head what me and my child were going to do against my husband, and he had the same stories. Who were they going to look like? So my grief and my desire to have children was centered around that family unit. So for me, it wasn't about, I just want any child. So that was where my choices came from. And again, also it was about the two of us, because it wasn't also about me just going, oh, let's just have a child, let's try this, let's go and adopt. It was also about the conversations having with my husband. And I think I just felt, given how I felt about it and the conversations we had, that actually it wasn't something that would have been productive for us. And also, as I said, I was working through my grief. I'm still working through that, and I'm not in a place where I say, okay, we're great now, we've worked through all this grief and it's okay. I'm still in a place where actually there's things I'm still discovering from it, and I'm still working through those things for myself and with my husband. So for me, as I said, it just wasn't something that is something I wanted to do. I admire a lot of people for making that choice because it is a tough decision to make. Children, you know, which is a shame because...
what doesn't that upset you even more? Like this, it could put you in a double-minded situation as well. Like there's lots of mothers who have kids and they're giving them away.
Yeah,
they don't want them anymore.
Well,
and you probably think, you put to this question to the universe or to God, okay, you've given children to people who don't want children. I really want children, and you know, I would nurture that child. Why do I not have that? It puts you in that. It must have put you in that.
For me, it didn't, but I've heard that conversation. I've been a part of those conversations before, and again, that comes down to your mindset, your relationship with God, and all those kind of things, and that's where it comes from. For me, because of my relationship with God and how I see that, I didn't have those thoughts, but I can completely understand why people do. And this is where I come from with the whole, well, why didn't you think, you know, if you had thought more positively about it, if you really wanted it more, it would have happened, when actually, if that was true, these things wouldn't be happening. There is no rhyme and reason to it. I certainly don't think there's a lot of women out there going, I don't want this child anymore, hey, put it into care. You know, I think it's very complex, and there's the situations are just, the circumstances around children being taken away and being in care are very complicated and very difficult and very sad, and it's sad that they have to be there. And I think that adds to another difficulty and another layer of the difficulty to these then children trying to live in this, I want to say normal, but not use it in that context, but in this life that for them is very difficult to adjust to because of the tragedies they've seen. And that's where that special parenting comes into it. And I don't know how many people actually think about that, because the joy of, oh, I'm going to have a child and take this child in is a great thing. But for me, that's my mindset and how I think. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be a really difficult thing because they're going to be bringing all this complexity. Am I prepared for that? Can I really do it? And I don't know if I can. That's my honest thought about it. I really don't know if I can, but it, you know, it's something that I think you have to really think about.
Okay. But one thing I'd like to ask you is, what, like I ask all my guests, what advice would you give to those women who have been in a similar position like yourself? And before that, actually, where is your book available? If anybody wants to pick it up and read it and be inspired from it, can you tell the audience, please?
So you can get, if you just go on to amazon.co.uk and look up Dreaming of a Life Unlived, you will find it. You can get the Kindle version via blurb.co.uk, so that's BLURB.
Okay, and what advice would you give to those mothers out there, if you want to look at them and let them know?
So I'd like everyone to know who is in this situation that there is hope. It's a different kind of hope, but there is hope. And you can find a fulfilling life without children. But the first thing you need to do is reach out. Don't be silent anymore, because that silence can be very crippling. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling is absolutely normal. Gateway Women is a great community. I'm a part of it, and it's a great resource for women who are just like you, just like me, who are so sad that they couldn't be mums. It's a great resource to be around women that understand, that truly get it, that will love you no matter what, and they will embrace you for everything and help you just to understand and work through that grief.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. And if you're watching and if you're out there and you need help, like Yvonne has mentioned, help is always there, and life is always not written to one thing. So as I said before, I believe everyone is here for a purpose. Find that purpose, love yourself, and life will fall into place. Thank you for watching the live show with Musart. Until next time, thank you.